Carroll, let's start with the markets in Europe, which have just opened this morning.
Yeah, that's right. A soft opening this Tuesday. All the main European markets opening in the red. The French banks, one sector that are all down in trading so far this morning. This after, of course, the warning from research firm Market yesterday that France might be heading for another recession. New car sales in the EU saw their third consecutive monthly rise in November, up 0.9% according to new figures. That's affecting, as you might imagine, car makers' shares. Fiat, just one I picked out for you, down just slightly on those figures, but finally a sign of recovery in the European car industry. Now over in Asia, it was fairly modest days trading as well. The highest gains on the Nikkei of just over 0.8%. Now the continuing will they, won't they speculation about what the America's Federal Reserve will do with its monetary stimulus program should be resolved pretty soon. They meet later this Tuesday and we may get a decision on what they're going to do on their tapering program. Over in Shanghai, shares were down as investors worried about a lack of liquidity towards the end of the year.
Next to Algeria, where the French Prime Minister is trying to secure new trade ties.
Yeah, France used to be Algeria's top trading partner. They lost that top spot to the Chinese in 2012. Jean-Marc Ayrault has gone to Algeria with 9 ministers and 80 business leaders trying to regain that top spot and drum up some business. For France, there are currently 450 French companies operating in Algeria, employing some 40,000 people there. Now, it's an important market for France. The French Prime Minister very keen that this country should gain from Algeria's continuing economic growth.
France does not just want to sell Algeria products and equipment. France also wants to create joint ventures, what we call our co-localization, i.e. investment. Jobs are created here, but that develops and strengthens jobs in France. And this is quite different from what happens with China.
To Brussels next, where ministers are taking another stab at reforming the banking sector.
Yeah, they're back at it again after last week's meetings. They're back in Brussels, starting with the Eurozone's finance ministers later this Tuesday. They'll be joined by their colleagues in the rest of the European Union tomorrow. Now, what they're trying to do is hammer out details of how failing banks in the EU should be wound up if they're found to be in that situation. The proposal currently on the table will create a fund over the next 10 years which will deal with those bank debts, but potentially states could be still left on the hook for years to come. The ministers need to make that agreement before Thursday, ahead of a meeting of EU leaders. French Finance Minister Pierre Moscovici, speaking this morning, said he thinks they will have a deal in time for that European Council.
Now it's time for some of the day's company news.
Yeah, we'll start with Boeing. The aircraft maker has announced a $10 billion buyback of its shares. They're also increasing their dividend by 50% to 73 cents per share. The company says it's a mark of confidence in its own future. The outgoing boss of General Motors has said taxpayers did benefit from bailing out the car maker. That's despite losses of more than $10 billion the US government incurred on the deal. Dan Akerson will be replaced by Product Development Chief Mary Barra, who will be the company's first female chief executive. And a British government report says the UK should consider building new runways at London's Heathrow and Gatwick airports. The Airports Commission says the southeast of England needs another runway for flights by the end of 2030. But the interim report rejected the idea of building a new airport on an island in the Thames estuary dubbed Boris Island because of the proposal coming from London's Mayor Boris Johnson.
Now here in France, struggling shops have been doing their best to keep up with online retailers.
Yeah, the high street retailer is suffering really at the hands of the likes of Amazon, big online retailers. 7 out of 10 French people say they'll be doing some of their Christmas shopping online this year. So fighting back, the traditional shops are doing their best to innovate to compete with their online rivals. Catherine Viette has the story.
During the busy holiday season, big online retailers like Amazon can send out up to 700,000 products a day. Faced with such stiff competition, traditional retailers are fighting back.
A magician's outfits and a magic kit.
I'll get that for you.
French retailers are catching on to what they call click and collect. A shopper can order items on the store's website and then pick up the merchandise in-store, avoiding shipping fees. With 7 out of 10 French shoppers planning to buy online this holiday season, retailers know they must do more to woo these customers. One town has come up with a novel approach. In Puy-en-Velay in Auvergne, the local shops have banded together to create their own e-commerce site. Watches, musical instruments, shoes, each owner photographs their wares. It takes time, but it makes the shops money.
The sales I made, they were at my store instead of one of the big online shoe websites.
Customers say they're happy to support the local businesses. In France, 3 other towns are following in Puig's footsteps and taking on the giants of e-commerce.
And that's unfortunately all we have time for Business Today with Stephen Carroll. We will find you again tomorrow. Now on to the International Press Review with Florence